All right, David.
Yeah.
I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
First of all, are church apps cool?
Yeah, that's one of those questions that we are definitely wanting to answer here, aren't we? I don't know. I think it's definitely a maybe answer.
It's kind of maybe. It depends on if the church has done a good job of building it and designing it, and they're updating it, and it's an active community, all of that. If that's the case, then sure, it's a really cool thing for that church.
Yeah.
The question, though, and this is the question of the hour, are church apps worth it for most churches and ministries?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of church leaders, communications directors, whoever you got on staff that's kind of over that sort of thing, that's what they're asking themselves. And even the senior pastors or whatever leadership is there at that church is asking themselves that when it comes to technology and keeping up with things at their church.
They want the answer to be yes.
Yeah.
The true answer is maybe. Yeah. It just depends on the church, and we're going to talk about that. Yeah. We're going to cover the state of apps, and we're also going to ask and answer whether or not a church app is the best thing for your church. So jumping right into the state of church apps, we've got a couple statistics and cool things to talk about. On the positive side, people are very familiar and comfortable with downloading apps. Millions more apps are downloaded from year to year. There are millions more apps being downloaded in 2023 than in 2022.
Well, of course, technology keeps just going up, and it's exponential.
It's exponential. And then also, the average user, the average smartphone user has 80 or more apps downloaded on their phone. That's something that we found by a study through Zippia. Yeah. 80 plus apps on everybody's smartphone. Yeah, which blew my mind.
Me too, as well. I mean, I had to start counting up on my phone when I read that because I was thinking, there's no way do I have that many apps on my phone. I don't use that many apps. Well, I was kind of right on at least one of those points, because I started counting up all the apps that I had on my phone. I was really surprised after the first page just how many I got there. And I have 4 pages of apps. And I was just like, ooh. And once I finally got the count done, there was 200 apps on my phone, or over 200 apps. I was like, okay, I got to clear some of these off.
Yeah, when I read that stat, I thought to myself, there's no way. Yeah. I must have 30 or 40. I counted, and I had exactly 80.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Now, that includes the bloatware from Samsung that I can't delete, but I have 80 apps on my phone.
I'm just one of those guys who just collects, and I collect, and I'm I don't ever take it off.
And that's the flip side, though. Yeah. There is a flip side to this, and that is that most users spend most of their time on just one app. And then also, most users, 97% of users spend their time on 9 apps or fewer a day. That's it. So even though we all have a lot of apps on our phones, we're using almost none of them.
Yeah, for me, it's probably 4 or 5 a day, on average for me.
Same.
I mean, I use my maps and my Bible app and, a few others. But
yeah, I'll check my texting service and then another group chat service that I have and my email. And then maybe 1 or 2 others. I'll read some Substacks on my lunch break, and that's about it.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
Social media things as well, of course. But
that's it. We're creatures of habit. Yeah. We follow those same pathways. We don't really branch out. Even as we find other apps that we think are cool and that we will use, typically we don't use them, and they just sit on our phones and gather dust on our phones and take up space. And that's why we need to ask, are church apps really worth it for most churches?
Right.
So there are some reasons why church apps might actually be worth it for most churches, or for a lot of churches at least. One of the reasons is that we've seen, just at least anecdotally in my conversations with church leaders as I work here, they've seen an uptick in donations when they have an app for their members to use, because online giving is typically integrated, right? And so having it on people's smartphones makes it more accessible to them, and it makes them think about it, and they go ahead and set up maybe recurring donations or something.
Yeah, I'd much rather get into something like an app on my phone where I can just do a few clicks or taps or whatever and be done with it, rather than trying to find a laptop or a desktop computer.
Exactly, because you have that phone on you.
You got it on you all the time, and
it's also better than remembering your checkbook every Sunday.
Right.
So it increases donations, anecdotally at least. I don't have a stat for that, but we've seen that.
Yeah.
Another reason is that a lot of apps allow you to have a sermon archive. So your members can take that with them as they go. They can listen if they miss a service, or if they just liked the sermon so much they want to listen to it again. They can listen to it as they're cleaning or driving or doing whatever else that they do.
I know I've done that. So.
Oh, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
People are very familiar, like especially with podcasts.
Yeah.
I at least have my podcast app, and I listen to sermons there, if not through the main church
Especially
app.
if you're like out with your family on a weekend, you're visiting on the holidays or something like that. You missed your own home church, and you're like, man, I'd like to know what happened this past Sunday, or at least hear the message if there was, like if they do that sort of thing.
Well, the other reason is information on the go.
Yeah.
Like you've worked in churches and in church leadership for a while.
Yeah.
Especially in media. So you're familiar with communications and what it takes to get the message out.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking.
Yeah.
And how you have to repeat the same thing over and over again for it to really sink in.
Yeah.
For a group.
Yeah.
Like
just a good reminder for church staff, when you are talking about things as a church staff, like multiple times a month, your church congregation might hear it once.
Right.
For every 5 to 10 times that you're talking about it. Like they hear it one time.
And an app is another opportunity for that person to come into contact with that information, that announcement, the upcoming event, the yada, yada,
check
yada.
things they may have missed. Or
exactly.
Whatever. Yeah.
And also a lot of apps allow for push notifications.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about push notifications on the reasons why apps may not be worth it, but it's a great way to get the message to people immediately, kind of like texting.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that, obviously.
You got to be very careful, even with texting. I mean, you can't just ding people all the time. Now, if your church has, let's say, 500 people in it, and the average age of the congregation is, let's say, 35 years old, or, roughly around there.
Okay.
Would you say that's kind of the over and under for whether or not a church should have an app?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, because again, there are many factors to that, but definitely, I don't think you want to put a straight number to that.
Sure.
But a younger congregation is obviously going to be more drawn to the technology and things like that, and social media. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably you should definitely think about having it.
And like the number 500 is an arbitrary thing I'm pulling out of a hat, but it's a large number of people, of a large donor base.
Yeah.
Therefore, you could probably take on that expense. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the expense of it.
Yeah. Like, and then not just the expense, but also the time. I mean, a congregation of less than 100 people, it takes a lot of time to build an app.
Sure.
Do you think it's worth having an app, devoting all that time and energy to creating an app for maybe 30 people that will download it?
Probably not.
Probably not. But if you have hundreds of people, you probably have over 100 people that would download it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about the kind of small church that you were just mentioning in your example, I mean, you could probably cover that with, just other forms of communication.
Exactly.
So.
And this is why for most churches, church apps, like a dedicated app for your church that you've purchased through a service of some kind, or even had a developer build for you custom, probably isn't worth it for most churches.
Yeah.
First of all, they're expensive.
Sure.
If you're building something fully custom, it can run you tens of thousands, sometimes even into the six figures
to
build
churches,
that, just depending on what it is.
Most churches aren't going to have that kind of funds to do that.
Absolutely. And even if you get an app through like a service, just a subscription service that gives you access to a platform that allows you to customize a template, those can run $100 a month or more. They're very pricey, depending on what exact package you choose. You can go even higher than that. So it's something that for most churches is just not going to be in the budget. Yeah. Also, push notifications are obnoxious. And I say that on my phone. I have 80 apps. You know why I have 80 apps? Because I've forgotten about most of them. You know why I've forgotten about most of them? Because I've turned push notifications off for almost all of them.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, I get stuff from my doctors or my dentist, and I'm just like, leave me alone.
Like when I download an app, one of the first things I do is turn off push notifications for that app because I don't want to be bothered by it.
Or in the initial stages of using it, they'll ask you if that's okay to send you, and I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't need a badge information every time that I send a certain number of texts or whatever.
And that leads us into the third reason why it may not be worth it, and that's app fatigue. One cool thing that we found is it's a study by ComScore, which was that the majority of smartphone users, and I can pull it up on my laptop just to show this, make sure I'm proving my bona fides here.
Okay.
The majority of smartphone users download 0 new apps every month. So most people don't want new apps, even though, like you said, you've got over 200. I've got exactly 80. We've got way more than we actually use. So we're obviously willing to download from time to time, but most of us are looking at new apps thinking, oh, I don't want another one.
That's I mean, yes, I do have a lot of apps on my phone, but you're right. I don't really do that often. I've just had like a phone for a long time, and it's been building up. And
I think like some of the most recent iOS software and their updates, they've actually instituted something where, like, if you go for so long without using an app, they just go ahead and remove that app from your phone.
Yeah.
With Samsung and other Android platforms, a lot of them either will do that or they'll like remove all the permissions that you've given that app if you don't use it after, I think it's 30 days. That's what my Samsung does. So after 30 days, if I haven't touched that app, it just removes access from like the contacts on my phone and all that, which is really nice.
This is one of those kind of things.
It's one of those kinds of things, but it's a privacy thing. That's I think why Apple does it too. But again, like, that tells you these providers, these like software the iOS, Apple and Android, they understand the moment we're in right now when it comes to app fatigue, which is that people just don't want new apps and often don't use the apps they have.
So they go ahead and many different apps. It's like you forget what you have, and then you come across it one day and you're like, why did I download that again? I've got the same one over here.
On my phone right now, I have 4 different apps for plant care that I downloaded all at the same time to test them all out to see which one was the best for taking care of the plants.
I've got like 3 or 4 weather apps, and I'm like, why do I need that? I just need one.
And I never really got around to testing them, and there they sit on my phone.
That's kind of how it was for me too.
And that's one of the things for like administrative wise, for the people behind the scenes doing the work of managing the church app, is that you have to like move so much over to that app whenever you first launch it. So especially if you're getting that app through a service, a platform, a subscription service, you're going to have to like move your calendar to the calendar that they use, or whatever platform that they integrate with. You're going to have to do whatever online giving that they prefer. You're going to have to transfer so much of the work you're doing on the platforms you're using now and switch to a different platform just to have that app. And that's going to be so obnoxious and a lot of work. And speaking of online giving, there's not really an app, there's nothing that an app can do that your website can't do better, including online giving itself and offering that to your people. Even though it's better to do it on a smartphone in terms of just people's familiarity, and like also, as long as you have a website that's formatted for mobile and that fits that screen size well, people aren't going to know the difference. When they access your website from their smartphone, because the majority of online traffic is through people's mobile phones or mobile devices. I think it's over 55% of all web traffic is mobile traffic. So as long as your website is formatted and responsive to that screen size, what does it matter having an app anymore?
And of course that can be really frustrating when you try to go to like a church website or any other website and it's not formatted for mobile, and you're trying to navigate it. It's really frustrating.
We're going to be recording a video soon about like website templates, church website templates, and that's a big topic on that as well.
I look forward to that.
So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to put you in the hot seat. Since you've been working in churches and you've been behind the scenes for a lot, why do you think church leaders want an app so bad?
Oh gosh, because their congregation is asking for it.
There you go.
They think they want to stay.
Give the people what they want.
It's like sometimes they'll do it and they don't even know why they're doing it. You know, like, and of course, they want to be relevant. They want to stay in with the technology of things. Some will think that hey, we want to be helpful in our communication. So more ways of communicating is just going to help our congregation know things. And that can be a good thing, of course.
Yes.
But it can also be not a good thing. I mean, if can I share a little story real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
So like, I remember being at a church a few years back that was a pretty good sized church. We probably had over 1,000 plus members at that church. So very large by some people's standards.
Yes.
And, but our congregation and the demographic of our congregation was probably in their 60s on like the median age. So it was a little bit older congregation for the most part. That's not to say that we didn't have young people. Of
course,
there.
That's median. That's average. Yeah.
We just had so many older people, and the leadership of the church wanted to have like something similar to the Facebook app.
They wanted a social media app.
They wanted
for
a
the
social
church.
media app, to their church. And, the alternatives that were out there, they didn't want to do that because it's not Christian based. We don't have any control over it.
Sure. That's fair. That's valid.
There's things that we can get into that someone else could hack that or whatever.
Yeah, perfectly valid.
Okay, I get that. But the problem that I saw at the time, even before we launched it, was, okay, but how are we going to get people to actually use it? And
that's what actually matters.
Yeah, because we know that at that time they were using the other social media platforms. And we're like, well, why don't we just find ways to use that better? Was kind of my question. But they got onto it, and we went forward with developing it. And of course, it was a big cost.
Yeah.
Took up a lot of time. And it was stated within our staff, hey, if we don't talk about this with our small groups and with our congregation as a whole, in the larger setting of things, people probably aren't going to use this. And I'm thinking, well, that should be your red flag right there.
Yeah.
And, long story short, we went up forward with it, and it tanked within 6 months.
And all that money all that time is down the drain.
I mean, within a year, it was completely gone.
Oh my goodness, that hurts to hear.
Well, that was, and some had the attitude, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm thinking, well, you lost a lot though.
Yeah, something ventured and something lost. Now, what I see a lot in my conversations with church leaders here at ChurchTrac, a lot of churches, I don't say this in an insulting way, but a lot of churches are following trends. Especially smaller churches, because the thinking is, if we want to be like that bigger church across town, we have to do the things that the bigger church is doing. And look, they have an app, so we need one too. But it's a chicken and egg argument, where that church didn't get big because they have an app.
Yeah.
They got the app because they were big enough to justify it.
Yeah.
So you don't need an app. The app isn't going to help you grow your church, at least get people into the church.
Yeah.
It may, if you use it well,
influence a little bit, but
it may help with some discipleship and just church development, but it's not going to increase the number of people at your church.
It's probably also not going to bring about better connection and unity in your church either necessarily. Better communication, but if you're hoping that people are going to connect better with each other, probably not.
Yeah, and then there are some church management software platforms that offer an additional service, like an app as an addition. So a lot of churches, it's almost a sunk cost fallacy of well, we already have this, and they offer that. Yeah. So we might as well just go ahead and do that too.
Yeah.
So with my experience with church apps is that for the most part, most people don't have a very good experience with apps. The current state of the web right now and of apps is that right now, web development is on HTML5, which is just the language being used right now to just develop the web. And it's so responsive and so advanced that now people are able to make websites do what previously only apps could do on a smartphone. The draw of apps back in the day, back in the 2000s and 2010s, was that a website could create, a company that had a website could create an app as well, because the mobile experience on that website was terrible. It wasn't formatted well, and they couldn't get the website to format well. Yeah. So they had an app so that mobile experience could be smooth and cohesive and not painful.
Yeah.
Well, now, HTML5 is allowing these companies to make their websites so good and so responsive to whatever screen size you're on that you're having a smooth experience whether you're on the mobile version or the app version.
Yeah.
So for lots of churches, it's better to just have a website that's formatted well and that will that's responsive enough to just meet the person wherever they are, whatever device they're on.
Yeah.
The majority of churches can't drop 6 figures or even hundreds of dollars a month on an app. They just can't.
Yeah.
Most churches don't have that in the budget. Mm-hmm. So having a website that allows you to format your site to whatever screen size is the best solution. That's a web app as opposed to a native app.
Yeah.
That's why at ChurchTrac, we created Church Connect. I actually have this phone here that I can show you what Church Connect looks like. This app is downloaded on the phone for this church. If I tap on the app icon, it takes me to the church's app. This is really just their website. And we've formatted it so that it can function perfectly on a smartphone as well. If I tap on any of these cards, it takes me to another page, and it all looks cohesive. Whenever you're on the desktop version of this website, it has the cards arranged in 3 columns instead of 1, but it's formatted for a smartphone here to have it everything in just 1 column. So it's a nice, smooth experience. Church Connect is a website, it is a smartphone app, and it is a member portal all rolled into one feature. As a member of this church, I can tap the sign in button in the top right-hand corner, sign in with an email address and a password that I've created. And I now even have access to my member profile. I can see my giving history and download my contribution statement or giving statement any time of year. And I can also go directly to the online giving portal. This is what's great about Church Connect, is all of it's integrated. So it also communicates with your church management software. All the donations through this portal will be reported there for the contribution statements, just to make that even easier. Again, members can cover the fees, they can set up recurring donations. All of that can be done with Church Connect. And it's free. It's fully included in every paid subscription of ChurchTrac, whether you choose the standard or the plus. Yeah. So it's all included in the church management package.
And I think for those who I've talked to about that are, Church Connect, I think a lot of them are like really kind of blown away. What do you mean? This is included?
Yes.
I don't have to pay extra for this, and I can access it like pretty much anytime I need to and update it on the fly, and it's super easy.
Yeah, it's built into the ChurchTrac account. So the same platform you're using to manage everything else about your ministry is also where you manage your website and app. And again, this can be formatted to be like a website so that you can draw people in. And if you're familiar with SEO, you can do that with Church Connect so that it gets your name out there.
But it's also simple enough. I mean, you guys just recently did a video or live stream or whatever that you showed how to do one of these apps and put it together in like 12 minutes.
Exactly.
And it's not hard at all.
It's very easy. And we've put out a lot of content on our YouTube channel. If you're watching this now, make sure to like and subscribe like this video and subscribe to our channel, and go watch all the other videos we've done on like using Canva to make really cool images for your Church Connect app, and also how to set up Church Connect. Like he mentioned, we did do a live stream just a month or 2 ago about creating Church Connect from a Church Connect app from scratch for a church, all in under 12 minutes. So it's super easy. We've got lots of resources for you to get started with Church Connect and make it really great for your church. So that brings us to our final question.
Did we answer the question?
Should your church have an app? If your church has the money, if you've got the pockets for it, and you've got also the donor base to support it, and you've got the membership to support it, enough people to justify the time and the effort, you can go get a dedicated native app that people can go find in the Play Store or the Apple App Store, download on their phone. It'll make your church look like you've really got your act together. It'll be like a luxury car that you show off. And it's
just have these kind of features that we've talked about here to make like online giving and all those sort of other things that we've talked about.
But if you're like most churches, a responsive website and web app is the ticket. And that's what Church Connect is. That's why we created Church Connect. It's the best app for your church.